pertains to the pool, the images appear to have a flat bottom, or create the view that it's a flat bottom. Is it indeed a flat bottom? And it's that view in particular that I'm talking about.
No.
Those lines are dead straight.
Yeah, it's just a conceptual depiction, you know, of the bottom of the pool through the water, but it'll have pitch. But actually, the steps into the pool are kind of centrally located around the sunning area, with steps on the north and southern side of that little shelf, and then it goes a little deeper to the far ends.
A little deeper, 1 foot, a little deeper.
So like 6 feet from about 4.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And a related question, if I might. So the presentation that we saw earlier in regard to, I believe it was Bonita Bay pool, can we have some elaboration of the amount of parking that they have to support that vis-a-vis what we have in regard to currently available?
And I don't know if you want to address that. The number of club members is also, I think, 1,450 there as compared to our 348.
Yeah, you got to remember too, they're coming from far, far away, those club members. If you have ever driven through Bonita Bay, it is massive. It is, I don't even know how to tell you, it takes 15 minutes to get from one end all the way to the other end. So it's going to need tons of parking. So I'm not sure how that will help. I can get you a number. I don't know, but I just don't know what.
Some prorated number, you know. I understand the distance in it, and it's a prorated estimation.
Because you got to remember too that at the pool and the pool that I showed you a video of, and that new building, there's 18 tennis courts, 3 paddleball courts, and a massive golf practice facility. All of those use, you know, the parking lot. I just don't know how I could get you something that would be helpful.
And to answer the pool, we've had, we really need to finalize dimensions. It looks like 4.5 feet at the ends in terms of where the laps are is a flip turn level. We've had the aerobics question that's come up a number of times. The minimum, I think, is 6 feet in the center of the pool, if not 6.5. So we're working to accommodate all of that, as well as having, as you come off the steps, you don't want to go into a 6-foot hole.
Tom, to answer the question too, is that, Dan, you'd have to say, let us know, there's a lot of expansion going on over there as well. So we're landlocked, we're not expanding. So 348 is it, where they have the opportunity to expand. Plus, if you take a look at the measurements that he put up on the board, we're a walking community. We don't have to drive anywhere, literally. So that's a big, important point for us. And it's, you know, it's healthy to walk.
You see an awful lot of parking in those buildings, parking lots.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
My question is also on parking, and it's a selfish question because we're 257. How, I don't agree, because I do see people get in our parking lot, unloading things, and so forth. How are we going to protect our parking from the rest of the buildings? It's not outside parking, it's people from the other buildings driving into that lot. Are they going to have we're going to have a separate sticker that we can park there, but they can't park there and use the pool?
If we go back to one of the earlier meetings that we had with Building 3, I was told there was no parking issue. I don't believe that, but that's what I was told by the people in Building 3. If we take, I mentioned to John Fate, who was on the board of Club 1, that what if we took 5 spots and just put signs up? 257 parking on, and John said, well, we need 7. Okay, that's a start. I do think we do have to monitor, whether it's our staff, our maintenance people that, well, these rules aren't in effect now. We just really need to be tough with some owner support, reporting problems where there are problems. We're not going to be putting dumpsters up against the building. That all of that should be controlled and prohibited. But again, the only time we seem to have issues currently, the 45 limit or 50 limit on the social events, or the dinners on Friday night. Well, all the vendors are gone. Most of the people walk. If we have an annual meeting, we have 80 people show up, probably a little more than in this room, well, we may have an issue. That's once a year. We're not think, again, the walking community, we're not expecting that kind of pressure. And we're working on some other things that maybe turn up some spots here and there, but, nothing that would directly, it should benefit you more than hurt. I'm not sure that's answering, no, sorry.
This with, at the COA level with your board and see if we can come up with something that would make some sense. And then especially we could take a look at it after the project may be done, and then if it really is a major issue, then let's explore it together and find a solution that will work for you.
We're
I
open.
understand what you're saying.
Any rules that would make sense, we're wide open to.
Yeah, definitely.
And continuing on with the parking, working as a social committee leader, and you say everybody can walk, and that's not true. It might be for the exercise people, because if it's raining, they just don't go. But if we have an event, and people have paid for the event, and it's raining, or if they are in need of a walker, we will not be able to have that event, or those people will not attend.
Okay,
I can answer that, actually. I think the idea, if we, let's say we did have the whole welcome back party again, then at that time, what we'll do is on your reservation that you're coming to the party, I think that we would hire like a shuttle bus and have pickup times and drop off for people that want to attend that can't get to an event. You know, or we could, rent a few golf carts. But I think that will be incorporated into the planning to make sure everyone that wants to attend, that needs assistance or parking, could.
I think people can also carpool.
And carpool.
Carpooling in your building.
let's go into the back burner, to Janet's point. The current screen room, for the most, is 75% shown as storage. Part of that is, if we need to, based on demand, we will buy a shuttle or two and store it in that area. And that would be used for events where we would hire either our maintenance people or possibly someone from security that knows how to drive the carts and provide some type of a planned shuttle service. The cost of the carts is probably the biggest thing. Doing that in terms of hiring people is relatively inexpensive, we believe. That's, again, based on the needs that we might have. The other issue that we've talked about at times is we're visiting, the engineers are visiting with the county to determine whether or not we can run some parking parallel on the east side of the boulevard, out of the view of Building 4. It's county property. It's not ours. We have no control. We can't do anything with it. If we get their permission, we may be able to put 8 to 10 parallel spaces over there, which can definitely be assigned to vendors, employees, and whatever. That's not part of this program. That's a back burner kind of thing. It is being investigated by the same lady that had done the FEMA work for us and has a good relationship with the county.
Les and Jennifer Mitchell, owners for about over 15 years, just recently moved to building 4 to get closer to this project. We've been just looking at it online, and it's been very interesting. This is the first meeting we've attended here. But at the end of the online presentation, it says something like, now you've seen the presentation, how would you vote? So do we have any idea of the informal opinion of people voting yes or no? Since we need 66% of yeses for this project to go ahead. That's my understanding.
That's true.
Tom, if you want to address that, or you want me to just?
You have the numbers, Tom.
Well, Tom has been working with Susan and Terry Walker and Steve in contacting owners and determining whether or not, what their opinion is, what information we can provide, and what their sense is. We have a substantial percentage of those people contacted, probably 80%, who are in favor of the project. Our concern is that group of people that we can't reach, that don't give us the office the email, or we could go through the mailing address, but we don't have phone numbers. That's the group that's difficult and represents it.
So I'd like to share the numbers. As of this morning, before we came over here, we have, let me get focused here on this. We have 234 of the 348 units have been classified either yes, no, or undecided. 161 are for it, 25 are against it, and 48 are undecided. But that leaves 114 units that we have no input from at all. And most of those, there's been a concerted effort of the ambassadors to contact as many people as they can in each of their buildings, and that's the residual that they haven't been able to contact yet. But we are short, as of today, 70 yes votes to get the 2/3 majority. But there's a lot of work to be done to get a hold of these people that haven't been gotten a hold of yet, or to address the undecided people, which hopefully today helped somewhat with that. But
And Tom, we're having an ambassadors meeting on
Yes.
Friday at 3:00. So that we will all meet together and strategize about how to reach some of these people that we haven't been able to.
Where are you meeting, Susan?
At the club, at
Our office.
So the 133 non or no votes defeat the project.
Sam Geis, Building 6, original owner. I came to Rini came to the first meeting and she said it was negative. I came to the second one and it was, I thought it was positive, it sensed positive. And I asked the question, which is really the only question we have to ask ourselves. I said, you've got to spend $1.4 million just to bring it to code? And is that a fact or is it fiction? He said, it's a fact. So I said, it's not a question. If we're going to have to spend the 1.4 million and we're going to have to spend, let's say, 3.5, what's the question? You're going to have to do it sooner. It's better to do it sooner than later. So Dan, your point about the pig with lipstick is the only issue that we have to think, and my question is actually to Dan. On your slide, you had 80% of Bonita Bay said no. Dan, can you tell us what do they need the same ratio there? And what did they do to get the yes vote? Because I think the biggest thing that you have to take is that question. Either you spend it now or spend it later. And the people that are on the fence or the people that you can't get a hold of, that's the issue. Nothing else really, I think, is as important as Dan, and on your slide, you had it at the bottom. Take it to the top. That's the only question from my perspective.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam. At Bonita Bay, what they did is initially the board had a decision to do this project without involving us members. And people were really upset by that, and that's why they all said no. So what the board did is they turned around and did what they should have done initially, which is to have meetings like we've been having for the last, I don't know, we've had meetings like this for the last several months. So after they did that, then people started getting on board, and now it's just really exciting to see how the community is using that facility. It's really, really packed. When I was there a few days ago trying to have lunch, I couldn't find a seat, there was just so many people there, it was crazy. So the community is making use of this facility, and it's about community, and it's about a social gathering area. People really, really like the ability to find a place to get together. We don't have one here. I mean, we like to think we could get together at Building 6 pool, but we just don't have a community area like we're gonna have hopefully when this project gets pushed through. I'm just gonna make one more push. Does everyone understand? If you do not vote, or your neighbors do not vote, that is a no. So that puts the bar very high for us. Although the numbers that Steve mentioned or Tom mentioned, those seemed good, those are not good because we don't know what the people who are apathetic are going to do. If they stay apathetic and don't vote, we've lost them. So we've got to recruit you guys and your friends and your neighbors. If you are on board with this, we've got to have you take the next step to support Susan in the meeting that's coming up on Friday. Maybe offer to help to reach out to some of your neighbors to see if we can convince them to make a good decision here. Thanks.
Building 9, we're actually halfway between 7 and 9 because we're moving from building. Anyways, my wife Terry and I are strongly in favor of the project. We love the idea of the whole thing. We don't like spending money for no good reason, but we think this is a fantastic reason and a great investment. That being said, my question is more for the architect. We're hearing issues about tariffs and costs going up, aluminum costs for windows, things like that. I've got a friend who's a builder. I think we've all built business and residential projects where we're used to overrun. So what's our fudge factor here in terms of this amount? We can't go over 3.8 million, but what if it turns out within 6 months that it's 3.81 million? Or do we have that fudge factor built in so it won't kill the whole project? Or what's our strategy if the building starts to run 10% higher? Can we cut back on the pool? Or, I mean, how do we do that? Because these things...
I think there would definitely be options that we could look at to cut back and check costs. We value engineer every project that we work on. And when I say value engineer, that's a review at the end, once all the bids and everything is in. Are there other methods that give you the same value for less cost? Sometimes you can switch, you know, for example, we have a project, we just switched from having aluminum shutters to having hardy board shutters, and we saved 20% on that line item. Going back to your initial question though, on the overall budget, I did not create that budget. That came from Build Inc. It's a contracting company. I believe Tom put a contingency into the budget, so I appreciate you asking me. Let me pass it to Tom to answer what he put in as a contingency. No problem.
I mentioned the reserve, that 375,000 is a pretty accurate number. That's, let's say that has 50,000 in it for refurbishing the elevator. There's probably 70,000 in for refurbishing the windows. We're taking that off the table. It's still in the reserves, and that's the 10% cushion if we go over to 3.8. The contingencies are 76,000. That was kind of a rounding factor that we needed some. I started with 50. We did some adjusting. That's a ballpark. That's a good number. If this goes through on time, Steve asked about the interest rate. If we had to fund this from day one and had a $400 a quarter for 5 years, that adds 500,000 to the interest. That's a big number. All of that has been brought down to where we think that what we have is controllable.
Thank you for that. The other comment you asked about tariffs. We see this happen all the time in construction. Concrete prices 5 years ago were going through the roof because China was building a lot of dams. Those are unforeseen things. I don't know how we could put in anything better than the contingency to cover that. And hopefully we don't find ourselves in a trade war.
I might answer that a little different, Michael, if I could. I think the concern would be that if it does go over for some particular reason, is there going to be an additional assessment to the owners? And that's not the case at all, because as Tom pointed out, the savings that we have already in reserves, 350,000 approximately, and we're not going to use all of that, but that is also in there for improvements on the current building that we have to work with anyways. So in the event, let's say we have to go over 100,000 for some particular reason, we have that in reserves. It won't come back to the owners saying, hey, we got to assess everybody another X number of dollars because it went over. We're committed to the proxy saying it's 3.8, and we're going to stick with that. There's no option. That's our legal obligation to our owners. So I hope that explains it a little bit differently. Any other questions at all before we, okay, happy hour is only 10 minutes away.
Wow, you guys start early.
I know, right?
Dan Carlisle, Building 10. I'm a new owner. My question is, when would the $3,000 assessment happen?
That would be upon the receipt of the vote, and let's say May 3rd, it's voted in. The next quarterly assessment, which would be the July 1st date, it would come as part of that. So we get the funding to pay for plans, inspect and gives us a little bit of front for the actual construction and demolition.
Okay, if it's a hardship for some people, can you maybe do it $1,000, spread it out or not? For each person? Yes.
Officially, no. Unofficially, we can work with the accountant to do a billing process that would be accommodating to that.